Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Sunday Night R Show. As you can tell, for people that are new, we were on Wednesday nights, so we moved back to Sunday nights. So just want to let everybody know that. We have with us tonight Jason Sloan, aka Prof Sales. He's going to be
Hey,
talking
everybody.
to us about spreadsheets a little deeper than Dwayne got into a couple of weeks ago. So,
Sounds good.
well, Jason, before we get into the topic, why should let everybody know where they can find you? Not as if they didn't know where you were all week anyway.
You can find me on YouTube at Prof Sales, PROFSALES. And you can also find me. We just started a brand new group on Facebook called the Rebels of Reselling, or the Roar. See what we did there?
Very cool.
Okay, well, we're about to answer the first question since Mr. Chadwick was trying to be a little bit of a small ball buster, but for the people that don't know and that didn't watch our show with Dwayne, can you explain what a spreadsheet is?
Yes. A spreadsheet is basically very similar to a database. And a spreadsheet allows you to enter data in basically a flat format in rows and columns, and you're able to track that data, analyze that data, and use it to improve your business, keep your inventory, lots of different uses for it. Excel is a very common one. There's also Google Sheets. There's a few others out there, but they are used throughout the business world. They're used in the reselling world. They're used, I don't know that there's really an industry that doesn't use them. So if you haven't used them, you're missing out. So maybe we'll shine some light on that tonight.
Well, I know I joked around with you before the show and I said I was going to ask this, but we don't have to go into it yet. But you can use spreadsheets to basically figure out your niche, what's best selling for your. So, like in your case, jeans, you sit there and say, okay, Levi's, this cut is better seller for me. So if I see that versus, I don't know, whatever, another jean at the same price, you'll choose the one that's better seller beforehand, wouldn't you?
Right. Because, the data is out there on eBay, or Amazon or whatever platform you want, and you can find out, what the best selling brands are in a given time and how much they sell for. But it's really tedious. It's really tedious to go on and pull down tens of thousands, not hundreds of thousands of records to figure all that out. What I like to do with my spreadsheet, and I don't really share this as much on my show, not because it's a big secret or anything, but just because it really hasn't come up that much, is I actually track with jeans, for instance, all the brands that I buy. And I actually have a tab in my sheet that shows, I think I'm up to 139 brands, and maybe I can show that here in a minute if you want to see it. And I can tell you in those fields, by all those brand names, how many I've bought, how many have sold, what the sell-through is. I could also tell you the average price, but the average price is a little tricky because I've changed some of my shipping policies and so on over the last year. So I'm working on something a little bit different for that. But basically, I can know if a brand that I'm buying is selling really well, if it's selling really poorly, if it's sort of average, how long I'm probably going to sit on it, all those things. So that's kind of something that I use it for on a very regular basis, and I find it really, really valuable for that. I am a geek guy when it comes to stats, but I think if you're a business owner or even a part-time business owner, you got to have some control over, are the things I'm doing working? And I think that's what a spreadsheet can help you figure out.
And I saw a comment from, I think it's Garage Flips, that said numbers for the Mac people. So people that are on a Mac machine know what to look for. It's under numbers.
What their spreadsheets.
Yeah, numbers. I haven't used numbers as much. I'm not as familiar with it. And the only reason is I guess I grew up in the Excel era. But all spreadsheets work on basically the same principles. I just happen to think that Excel gives you the most robust spreadsheet probably you can get for a reasonable price. And there's so much to know on it, you would never know it all. There's actually a guy I subscribe to who's called Mr. Excel Fun. And or Excel fun. I can't remember, but and he has about 50 or 60,000 subscribers, and he puts out just a tremendous amount of content about spreadsheets, but a lot of it's dealing with like business intelligence and data, and quite frankly, a lot of it's over my head in terms of what he's doing with it. But there are pieces and nuggets he uses, you know, and you'll be like, oh, I could use that in mine. I could use that to figure out, you know, I think to Garage Flip's question, a trend, and say, all right, I'm seeing a trend now in my business, and now I need to react to that. And what do I need to do exactly to take advantage of that, or, you know, minimize a loss, or whatever the particular issue is.
Well, I know, I think Mike was the crazy kind of joking a little bit, but why don't we start with you showing a little bit of your screen share of your what yours looks like,
Sure.
compared to a basic that Dwayne showed last week or a couple weeks ago.
Hey,
Yeah.
Jason, do you
Yeah.
do you use yours for inventory as well?
Yes, I use it for inventory. I use it to track sales. I use it to identify trends and opportunities. I use it for some secondary things that aren't probably as common, because I will experiment a little bit with it. You know, experiment with certain parts of it and say, hey, I'm just curious. I wonder about this group of stores that I shop. How much inventory do I pull out of them, you know, on a regular basis? And I'll give some caveats to that, but I can show you right off the bat what I do for inventory. And it's really simple, at least to me, I think it is. But, you know, understand it's been honed over quite a while. So let me see if I can get this to come up here. And I will do a screen share. And there we go. So this is what my inventory screen looks like, guys. And I just have some basic info on here. Basically, let's look at this row right here. I've got a SKU column you can see right here, which allows me to give every single item an identifier. And that's just a number that just goes right in order: 39, 26, 27, 28, 29. I've got a location, and for me, this is Area A, Hanging Rack 1, AHR1. I've got what the item is. This is actually my title of my item that I am selling. So when I go to make the listing, I actually can copy in this cell and paste that in my listing title, because that will be the title. I used to have this as a link to the title, the hyperlink itself, but what happens with eBay, as many of you know, if you relist something, it generates a whole new ID. So then it has a whole new hyperlink, and there's no and I'm not going to go back and post that again. It's just too much work to do all that. The second thing, the third thing, or fourth thing, I guess I have over here is my measurements. I actually print this on the tag. What I will do is, when I create this item and I go ahead and put it in an inventory, I'm going to highlight these 4 columns, and I'm going to put that all on one Dymo 450 turbo printer label. I know it sounds like that would be a lot and it won't fit, but you can actually format it pretty well. And these two items over here are a little bit bigger font. These 2 items and these 2 columns are smaller, but that just reminds me, in case like the label gets displaced from the item, I could find it really quickly because I know exactly what it is and what the measurements were and so on. And then this column over here is what it cost me to buy. You see I paid $428 for this one, and I listed it on January 12th of this year. Now I will take that info later and I can compare how long my items are selling for. I know that because I know when I listed it. It may not be the day I bought it, and that's actually tracked a little bit somewhere different. But basically, just having that basic info in gives you your cost of goods when it sells, when you list it if you want to see how long it took, obviously your description of your item, your location, and then the actual SKU number itself, whatever you come up with.
Very cool.
Hope that wasn't too wonky or anything. Sorry.
No, it was pretty straightforward, actually. I think on my inventory, I have a few other things, but I usually have mine set up with either a defects area or a other description in case there's something that I missed or didn't see when I originally inventoried it. So
yeah, and I think, Twain, to your point, like what you just mentioned there about, a defect or something like that, I mean, that's not a bad thing to have on it. Here's the thing. I mean, we get caught up in this idea about, the spreadsheet and what it should or shouldn't have. The reality is it only needs to do a few things, and everything else after that is, you know, debatable. First of all, you need to have some sort of inventory tracking system. I think that's key. I think any spreadsheet system you come up with, you should do that. You will thank yourself later when you come up with that, and there's a bunch of good resources online. I found one, I actually sent it to a friend of mine yesterday, and he's like, man, this is so good, and you can adapt it to your setup. Second, you need to have a way that you can input your cost for items. And eventually, because you're going to need that on the back end when you sell it. You're going to need that for accounting purposes and so on. And then third, it needs to be a way that has some, what I call redundancy built into it. I cannot tell you how many times this spreadsheet has saved my you-know-what when I have sold something and all of a sudden I couldn't find it, or it was in the wrong place, or it was here, it was there. And the spreadsheet coupled with what using the seller SKU label on eBay has allowed me to find, I think I've lost one item out of thousands that I just could not figure out exactly what happened to it. And I had to tell the customer, hey, this isn't it. Like, I don't have it. I'm really sorry. Here's your refund. I'll give you a discount on future purchases. But having a spreadsheet that had, you know, just a good basic tracking system in it for my inventory, feed in with what I was doing on eBay, man, it will save you, because it's not a big deal, guys, when you have 10 items or 20 items. But when you get up to 100 or 200 or 500 or 1,000, you're going to forget. You're going to forget where things are at. You're going to forget what they were. And when you're selling something like jeans, and you look at a big rack like that behind me that's full of just jeans, they all look the same. I mean, you can't, you know, it's not like you can eyeball and say, oh, it's that pair. You'd have to look through all of them, and it's hundreds, you know. And so I think it has to do those things, whatever your spreadsheet does, you know, or however you're tracking your inventory and so on. And beyond that, you know, you can start debating, but I think those are the basics in my opinion.
Well, and then of course, yeah, it should do, you know, sales as well, so you know what you sold it for, not just what you bought it for. Right.
And you know, I could show you some of that too. I can show you the back end of that if you guys want me to share it. Not a big deal. Let me go to the screen share. Now I have a sold tab here, and I actually don't show this particular tab as much online, like on my channel and so on. So you're all getting the world premiere here. But you can see here that this is my sold tab in 2017. And these are some recent sales. And you can see over here I have a date. So we'll say right here on this one, I have a date of January 13th, this item sold. It was, now the great thing about this is it was the SKU number that I had over here. So I'm going to go back over inventory for a minute. So remember that number, 3442, right? Well, here's what I do. When I sell an item, I print the manifest from eBay for the day's sales. So when I get up in the morning, that's what I print. And I have the custom SKU label field, and it has the SKU number as well as the location of the item. You can't see it, but there's a column right here between B and D, because I don't need to really show it here. It doesn't really mean anything. But basically, that's where the SKU number is. So let's go over to item 3442, and I'll show you what I do. I think this is probably the best part of it for me. So I'm going to scroll way up here to 3442, and there it is. So all I do is I go in and actually make this green. And the reason I make it green is because it's money. But the other reason I make it green is because that allows me to really quickly sort down through this list and see what's sold and what hasn't. So I can sort this list by unsolds just by showing everything in a column that's not green because it's not sold. But I go ahead and I just make this whole column green and I copy it. And then what happens is I paste it starting right here. It gets pasted straight across. And you can see that's all the info. It was listed on the 16th of November. That was actually the day I did the 100 listings, believe it or not. It was a 383 cost of goods. Here's the item number, which I don't really care about anymore. And then over here, I actually enter in, I just copy down eBay for all these. I actually enter the cost that it sold for. So that allows me to really quickly tabulate sales in another part of the spreadsheet, because I can add up everywhere that my cost of goods was for a given time range, and I can add up everything I sold for a given time range. And I can do it by platform, in this case, eBay. So that's how, so I've got the inventory tab and the sold tab and they both work in conjunction with each other, I think, really well. So you're exactly right, Dwayne. You absolutely have to have both.
Okay, and the next thing I'm thinking you have somewhere is fees, eBay fees, PayPal fees, shipping fees if you're not doing free shipping, and how do you track those?
Here's the part where I think sometimes people with the spreadsheet go wrong, in my opinion. And again, it's just my opinion. It doesn't matter how much in fees you pay for an individual item. What matters is how much you pay in a given time frame, because that's your cost of doing business. Like my fees work out to about 13%, right? That's kind of the number if you're a top rated seller and so on. So what I do is at the end of each month, I will go into eBay and I will look at my selling cost. It shows you all that in the Seller Hub. It's really easy to see. They break it down for you every single day and give you a total. They also show you your subscription fees if you have a store, which I do. That's all lumped in there together. And I just enter one number at the end of the month on the last day of the month, kind of in my transactions for the month tab, which pulls it over into a metrics and shows me all the sales and so on. And to me, like that is really what you need to do with fees. Like, I don't know why people get, and maybe you guys do, and if you do, I'm not meaning to offend you. I don't know why people get so caught up in tracking the fees on an individual item. Like, what are you going to do? Oh, that was interesting. What are you going to do with that information? You know, like when you know that doohickey whatever that you sold 4 months ago had $1.87 in fees. Like, how does that help you? I mean, it's you kind of know what that's going to be when you list it, because you know what your percentage is going to be. So you should already have that figured into your pricing. And, you know, obviously you should have it figured in to when you buy something, is it going to be worth it given the fees and so on and the cost? And so I think the better decision for most people is don't get caught up on the fees on any one item. Look at the fees for like a month, because you're going to get a big number there at the end. eBay is going to track it for you. Of course, you could go in and see them individually, but I don't know what you get out of it. I'm a guy who likes to track everything, but I've yet to figure out exactly what the fees on each individual item will tell you really to help your business. So I just look at it in the aggregate for a month. So sorry if that was a long explanation, but you know me.
And that's fine. I just, I track it. I don't know why. Again, like you said, other than knowing exactly what I paid and paid for and sold a particular item and what my net is after all the fees. Mm-hmm. But like you said, it really doesn't make much difference whether you do it as a total of the month versus individual item.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you start doing it monthly, Dwayne, trust me, you're going to thank me, because you're going to go, I don't have to worry about that crappy, because it's going to be the same number as all your individual ones, right? I mean, it's just the aggregate of it, and you need it, and you absolutely need. I don't want anybody to walk away from this and go, oh, Prof said we don't have to track fees. Nope, you need to track your total fees, really for just a month, because you need that for your accounting and your tax purposes and so on. It's a cost of doing business, right? You know, but you don't need it, in my opinion, for each individual transaction. I think that's a little overkill.
Makes sense.
I see a comment I'm going to read from Lonnie, aka Garage Flips. He says, I think tracking individual fees would be more crucial with Amazon FBA, where the fees can be much more substantial percentage.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what you guys think about that. I don't. Even if it's more or less, I mean, it is what it is. You know, it's the cost of doing business on eBay or Amazon. And you know what it's going to be when you list the item. If your cost of fees is 13% and you list a $50 item, you're going to pay $6.50 in fees, you know? So, I mean, again, you might be interested in it, but what does it really tell you? Like, it's an after the fact thing that I don't know really helps you that much. Like, you should really think about that when you do your pricing, you know, because that's where, you know, you're going to know, like, for every $10, it's going to cost you $1.30, you know, basically is a way to look at it. And on Amazon, it's higher. He's absolutely right. It is higher. Like the fees are higher if you're doing FBA because there's a pick and pack fee and there's storage fees and things like that. There can be long-term storage fees. I agree. But that's all stuff you should know the percentage, Dwayne. I don't know what you think about this, but you should know the percentage. But I don't know that, like in general, like when you're buying an item and you're sourcing an item, but I don't know that you need to worry about it individually as much, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, and like you said, maybe I will start tracking by month and see if I'm a bit OCD with my numbers, but if I can let go a little bit, since those numbers, like you said, really till the end of the month. So
right.
Let's see what we have. Go ahead, Chris.
Well, now this question my wife came up with because she considers it, and you understand it when I read it, but what is, in your opinion, the best tutorial for creating and using a spreadsheet? I know we're doing a show on it, but I mean we're not going in, like Dwayne did a little bit on his show, the basic of what goes where and what column type of thing. But do you know of any? And she said for dummies, because there are people that are not mathematically inclined to even know what they're doing.
Well, that's a good question. And she's absolutely right. There's people who either don't want to do the math, can't do the math. And here's the great thing I'm going to say. The beauty of spreadsheets is you don't have to do the math. It does it for you. That's what spreadsheets and computers are really, really good at, is doing math. So that you don't have to, and doing it thousands and hundreds of thousands of times, faster than you can do it and more accurately. I think to her question, the first thing you need to do is you need to understand a little bit how they work. Because if you don't, you're never going to see the value. It's like handing somebody a shovel and they don't realize it's to dig holes. They're like, what do I do with this? Banging a nail, well, you could use it for that, but it's not very effective. So I would say the first thing to do would be to probably go ahead and look at, just a basic Excel book, even Excel for Dummies, which you mentioned, which is probably pretty good. I've never actually read it. I've probably read through it, but you need to kind of understand what it is and what it does. And that's probably it. Like, I don't think you need to go any deeper than that. You don't need to be an expert. I am certainly not an expert. I am totally self-taught. I've never had a class on Excel. I never took a class on spreadsheets in college or anything like that, but I've used them for 25 years or so. So I've gotten a lot of practice with them and seen them evolve and learn things over the years. And I've also got a friend who's a database administrator. So he's really good with, thinking that way when I have a question that's a little outside of the box. And usually he'll tell me, yeah, Jason, you can't do that. It doesn't work that way. But, I think you probably just read a basic book on them, honestly. Excel for Dummies or something like that, for the Idiot's Guide, whatever it is. Start with that. And then you probably use a solution or create one on your own. I mean, a spreadsheet, guys, is no different. If you sat down with a piece of paper or a notebook or whatever, and you wrote down, on this date, I bought this and I paid this amount for it, and later on this date, it sold. That is a spreadsheet. That is essentially what a spreadsheet's doing. The difference is the spreadsheet can keep that very organized. It can sort those things alphabetically, ascending or descending order. It can perform mathematical calculations on it, but it's just not going to make the mistakes you make. If you put the data in there right, it's going to output the correct data when you need it. And that's what's so awesome about them. But you're absolutely right. You have to understand at least the basic of what they are. There's probably online courses too, and I'm sorry I don't know any off the top of my head. I don't want to steer somebody in the wrong direction. So.
And one of the things that I always tell people that ask me about spreadsheets is think of your check register.
Mm-hmm.
Your check register when for us old people that had check registers.
Yep.
That is a very simple way. You could make a very easy spreadsheet to do that, because all it is like you said, typing in what you want by check number, what you did spend it on, how much, and then the spreadsheet itself will do the math for you, so you don't make the human errors. But That's the easiest idea of a spreadsheet that I've come up with.
No, and man, you're dead on. And if you want, Chris, I will show you another sheet that I have because Chad's in here giving us grief saying a spreadsheet's just a glorified calculator. and I would say he's correct that it is that, but it's also a lot more. It's a lot more. And it can be used for a lot more. I mean, there's people who run multi-million-dollar businesses using just sophisticated spreadsheets, basically. So I was going to show you guys something else that I use it for, specifically for genes that I've been doing this over. Yeah, I know you weren't trying to troll, Chad. I'm just messing with you. But I started using this probably maybe a year ago. I started doing, maybe not even a year ago, but let me share my screen again. I'm going to show you something that I like to do with it. Now, you guys know that, I'm known for buying and selling a lot of jeans, and I get that. There are other things I sell too, but jeans was something I focused on. So let me show you what I use, one of the tabs on my sheet, and this is all in one big workbook. And let's see if I can get this to come up here. So this sheet is called the Gene Sell-Through Sheet. Catchy name, right? Yeah, I'm not very creative with the name, sorry. But this shows me a bunch of things. First of all, it shows me I have 139 different jean brands that I've bought over the last year or so. About 3,300 of them, sold 2,251, and a 74% sell-through. So basically 3 out of 4 of the jeans that I bought have sold through on this. Now, there's some older ones in here, not as many these days. There's some medium-age ones or some brand new ones. So you could argue eventually maybe they'll all sell. But my current sell-through rate is around 74%, so about 3 out of 4. Then I go down and I break it down by brand. Now, you see these columns up here have these little tabs on them. So these tabs are just called filters. And that's not something you can do on a calculator. This is something you can use to learn something. So for instance, if I want to put all of this in, say, ascending order, which is basically an alphabetical order, you can see all my genes in alphabetical order. So I could go through really quickly and say, hey, do I sell any Kuji jeans? Well, there's the C's and there's Kuji, right? But those filters allow you to go through and see what have I bought the most of. So now let's sort it by what have I bought the most of. And you can even sort it by more than one. Oops, I need a descending, I guess, actually. So the most I've bought have been Levi's, 1,046. American Eagle, 486. And then over here, I've got a sold column. And then I've got the actual sell-through rate. But here's what I really like to use this for. So this column is called percentage of bought jeans. So basically it means what percentage of all the jeans that I've bought are Levi's. In this case, you see it's 30.91%. So it's 31% of my jean inventory. Let me do this. You can also see over here, it's 32.88% of what I've sold. Now, I know some of you guys are going, well, I'm not mathematically inclined. How can that be? How can you sell more than you bought? It's just a bigger percentage of the ones I've sold. It doesn't mean that I've sold all of these, obviously. And because of that, I've sold 106% of them that I've bought versus what I bought. It is a buy for me. I have a formula over here where I determine if a jean is a buy or a hold. And it's basically right around the 83% number, believe it or not, where it flips. So I know right now when I go out and source, I know I need to buy these brands right here. 7 jeans, 7 for all mankind, Not Your Daughter, Lucky Brand, American Eagle, Levi. Why do I need to buy them? Because I am selling more of them basically than I have bought. So I am a little short in inventory. That's powerful, guys. You can use spreadsheets to go in and figure out stuff like that. I know when we go to the bins tomorrow, these 6 brands are a buy for sure. For sure. And I do this, all the way down through the sheet, and there's lots of them. Now, when you get down here and you have less and less, like when you've only got 6 mech jeans and you've sold all 6 of them, yeah, that's 100%, but it's not a big, huge sample. So you might not take as much from that. But I know tomorrow that I need to buy these 6. I also know, Vigas, maybe if it's a great deal, I'll buy it. What is this one right here? Calvin Klein, if it's a great deal, we'll buy it, but 72% is a little low. So I know I can probably hold on some of those. So if you're out there and you've got a decision, so I could take this and I could just take a list and I could just make a list of all these right here real quickly and just, print it out if I want it and go say, all right, buy, hold, buy. There you go. I mean, that's just one thing you can do with them, guys. And I created this kind of all on my own and figured it out. And honestly, it wasn't that hard to figure out. The only thing was coming up with this formula over here was a little tricky. And I'm not going to go into how I did it because it's beyond the scope of this show. But that's what your spreadsheet can do. You can go in and you can see stuff like, all right, what jeans have sold through the worst for me? So we say, all right, I got some Page maternity jeans. I got 4 of them, haven't sold them. Antique denim, 3 of them, haven't sold them. Miss Vigas, haven't sold them. Abercrombie. Now, granted, it's not a lot of numbers of these, but we haven't sold a lot of those. And some of these are just one-offs, and they may sell at some point, but some of them get even worse. Like here's Page jeans. I've bought 8 and only sold 3 for 38% sell-through. That's kind of low, and Page is a good brand. Maybe it's just the ones I'm picking up particularly in this case. But that's the kind of stuff you can use it to do. And there's nothing proprietary about what I just did. I mean, that's just very simple, addition, subtraction, and division and multiplication, honestly. It is nothing more complicated than that. And I think that when you create a system, like Dwayne was saying, that, tracks your solds, your inventory, and then you can start pulling some metrics out of it and see how your business is running. Let me tell you something, guys. That's what you would go pay a business analyst or something, $150 an hour for them to do. That would not be cheap advice to get. You can take it and you can learn your business inside and out with the data you already have. And I think a spreadsheet is a great way to start down that path and see where it takes you.
Well, and a lot of times sorry.
Well, go ahead, Dwayne. I was going to say we had questions, but I'll let you ask. We'll go to
I was just going to say, and a lot of times you don't even know how your business is doing until you've looked at some metrics. I know somebody at one time, Deb, Pinching Pesos a long time ago, said, she knew she was making money, but she had no idea how much or anything like that, because she wasn't keeping track of that, of those base figures. And it really gives you a chance to take control of your business and find out, hey, like you said on those some of those jeans, you thought they were going to be a good buy. Well, they were a bust. Next time, oh yeah, I definitely don't want to buy those because they are slow movers. So, and the great thing is just about anything you can ask that's financial about a sale or a transaction, the spreadsheet can figure out for you, whether it's, if you want to know how much of a percentage profit, or if you want to do, did I make 5 times my money or not? All of those can just be right into the spreadsheet, and it's very adjustable for any person.
Yeah. And you said something key there, Dwayne. If you have a question about how much money or what, and here's the thing, there's so many people in the reselling community who have questions about their business, and they don't know the answers because they're not really tracking their results, or they're tracking them, but just silly things. Car and I were just watching $1 Billion Buyer on CNBC, and we were watching the replay of it, and there was a lumber company, made some great products. They made them out of old barns, like the lumber but when Tillman Fertitta asked the lady, how much does this cost? And she said, well, I'll have to figure that out. Like, she wings it on every single item. She winged it to decide how much something costs. And I'm going, not only is that a bad business practice, it's exhausting. I mean, because I know people say, well, I don't like to deal with math or analyze this. I'm like, do you like to go out there and sell things at a loss? Do you like to buy things in a way in which you will never make a profit on them and waste your time and money? Because if you're not tracking your results and you're not analyzing your approach to business, I guarantee you're making mistakes that are costing you time and money. And you won't know that. You won't know that unless you somehow track your results and analyze what you're doing. You don't have to do it maybe to the degree I do it, but you got to do it to some degree.
Well, and I was saying that one of the what was the show I was watching, that Restaurant Impossible or something, where somebody goes in and tries to fix people's restaurants. And one of the
Yeah.
first things he asks is, what's your labor costs? And people look at him like, I have no idea. What are your food costs? Where's your money going? And those are basic things that you should definitely know.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Agreed.
Well, we have,
okay, Chris, go ahead.
we have 3
Sorry,
questions
Chris.
here. And one is from Turtle Trader. He says, do you track other COGS, donation, mileage, and sourcing individual daily or monthly?
You can do that monthly, but mileage is something that is a deduction that you want to speak to your accountant about that, or whoever your tax preparer is. But I mean, that's not something you need to really, from my understanding, you don't need to really track it every month on a spreadsheet unless if you've got like a mileage app, those work really well for that. And they can give you a report of how many miles, business miles you've driven, over the course of, a month, 6 months, a year, because that's going to be something you're going to use for a tax deduction. It's going to be something that allows you to write off some of the cost of your business, the miles you drove. So I don't know that it's really, I mean, you could create a tab or something somewhere and say, here's how many business miles I drove this month. Here's how many I drove that month. And then at the end of the year, when you do your tax, or if you do them quarterly, whenever you do them, you're going to be able to deduct, some costs from your business because of the miles you drove. But I don't think a spreadsheet has to really necessarily track that. I think that's a little bit of overkill. Mileage apps are really great because they go by GPS, and you can quantify every single trip you take. And hopefully you guys are always doing business on every trip you take. If you're not, there's something you need to start doing, because when you drive somewhere, you need to find a business reason during that trip, because you can deduct those miles if it's for business purposes.
And we have a question from Garage Flips. He wants to know, Jason, do you periodically run a report to identify stale inventory, then put that stuff on sale?
That is a great question. The answer to that is no, but yes. So if you remember, and this is where I try to be simple, and Dwayne, maybe you do something like this too, I'm not sure. But if you remember from the inventory tab, the numbers that I use for each item number are sequential. So they just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the older a number is, the longer it's been setting, right? By definition. If it's number 10, it's been in my inventory a lot longer than number 100. And you can talk about exactly how long, but I don't know if that's important to you, you could track that too if you really wanted to. But what I will do is I will go in and sort my custom label SKU field in eBay by ascending. So it starts with the lowest number and then goes up. And I can go through and reprice those items if I want to start moving them out quicker. If I'm like, oh man, I got some items that have been there, they were 2,000 listings ago. Man, I need to get rid of those. So I'm going to go through and take these 12 listings and reprice them. Again, that's what your inventory sheet could give you. But if you're not keeping track of that, and it's just on eBay and you don't have any sort of way on there to tell how old an item is, you can't really do that other than just what's up here, which, you're going to forget things. When I did inventory at the end of the year this year, I had forgotten a couple things that I had, but they were still on the spreadsheet because it just sits there and tracks it. So, it just sat there for months and months and months. I was like, oh, I totally forgot I even had that. And I'm like, I need to move that, or a couple things, I pulled them out. I was like, oh, maybe I can wear this. I'm not sure. So, whatever the answer is, but that's what I use it for in terms of, I could run a report, I guess, but I don't really need to. I can just kind of go through very quickly. I could sort that page with my inventory on it by SKU number and just show me all the ones that haven't sold. And I could say, all right, I'm going to go through and, change these if I want. It's very easy to do once you've got it in both places. I've got it in eBay, basically, with the custom SKU label, and I got it on the inventory tab in my sheet.
And next question we have, Dwayne, why don't you read that from Alvin?
From Alvin? Alvin asked, how much time do you spend on spreadsheets?
Not that much. I will be honest, as I've gone along and done things on it, sure, there's been some time sunk in to, set them up and so on. But I would say the amount of time other than the daily, you know, that I'm going in and actually putting items in and recording sales and, you know, things like that I do, you know, you do during your business anyway. You have to do, right? Other than that, I don't even think it's 1% of my time anymore. I mean, it's really low because there's no reason to. I can go very quickly and look at something. You know, I've gotten to where I know this one inside and out because I've torn it apart and deconstructed it all the way along. And it's been an evolution. It's not like I went right out of the gate and nailed it the first time. I mean, and you probably won't either. You'll realize, oh, I don't need that, or I did need this. And, you know, there'll be some things to kind of figure out. But now it's just like anything else. It's like saying, well, how much time do I take to make a gene listing? You know, a minute and a half. You know, once I have the photos, it's about a minute and a half because I don't need to think of that much about it anymore. I know it. Like I know exactly what to do. I've done it so many times. There's just no reason to. And it's the same with it. You know, once you get it down, you just breeze through it.
Yeah, it's mine is always evolving. Because as soon as I think I know, you know, everything I want to know about something, I think, oh, maybe I should track that instead, just for the heck of it. So I'll add that on for a while, and then I'll change it later if I don't want it to. But seriously, after it's generated, the main hub is generated.
Yeah.
After that.
Yeah, and you might think, and I would say this, and maybe you agree with this, Dwayne, I'm not sure, but if you've got something you want a change to make at some point, you know, do that in your non-business productivity time. You know, you take some time maybe later and you say, all right, I'm going to spend 20, 30 minutes and I'm going to go in and see if this makes sense to do it this way and maybe play around. Like sometimes I'll create a tab. Like I've got a tab on there right now where I was going in and I started looking at Levi's and by their fit number and recording the sell through for them because Levi's is almost 1/3 of my jean inventory.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm starting to think now, and I'm like, and there's so many fit numbers for Levi's, and several of them I've never even found. Right. So I'm starting to think it's like, is this really worth it? Maybe not. You know, I mean, it's interesting, but it's not really mission critical. So, you know, I kind of put that project on the back burner after about a half an hour or so. I was like, eh.
Right, exactly. The Crazy Card actually said in the chat that it wouldn't help him as much because he has a more diverse inventory. And I went back to him and I said, it even helps more with a diverse inventory because you can break it into your different individual niches and see what you make more money on electronics than you do jeans, or, you know, you find more of these or that. I mean, you can compare apples and oranges, you know, by making it even field. So
preach, brother Dwayne, preach.
I'm telling you.
I mean, you just nailed it right there. And you nailed it when you said by category your niches, because for the Crazy Card, that was his name. If you went into Crazy Card and you added a field over there in that inventory tab that said category, and maybe it's the eBay's category, maybe it's one you come up with, you know, books, DVDs, toys, video games, antiques, collectibles, whatever categories you want, you can very easily take that info and put that together, you know, somewhere else in the sheet and tell you, here's my average cost of goods in this category. Here's my selling price. Here's my net profit. Here's how long it takes to sell. Here's my sell-through. Absolutely, man. I mean, it doesn't all have to be one type of item. That, you know, I've gotten to the point that I don't need that as much because I kind of know all my brands and so on. I've developed that knowledge after doing it thousands of times. But man, if you sell a diverse part, Dwayne's exactly right. Like it's going to help you even more if you just take a little time to figure out your niches and which ones are the most profitable and sell the quickest and so on.
Hey, we have a question from Wicked Picker, who wants to know, how do you say have an American Eagle gene fall into the American Eagle category? Through the title or something else? I hope you can understand that question.
Yeah, I'm not totally sure I understand the question there, Wicked Picker, but how do you say have an American Eagle? You could make a category over there for American Eagle if you wanted, and you could make a column just down beside all your inventory items, and you could just come up with a code. The other way you can do it too is through using formulas. You could go on another part of the sheet and say, you put in a cell, American Eagle, and then the cell beside it, you say, all right, spreadsheet, look through all my inventory and give me every instance where you see the words American Eagle. You can pattern match that. You can literally do that. You can tell it to search down through a whole column or even an array of information, columns and rows. But you can search through a whole column and say, all right, show me, count how many times the word American Eagle, and in my case, I put American Eagle jeans. That's what I do for that sell-through tab. I actually do it that way. I tell it, all right, go down and find every time you see the phrase Levi's jeans. And then I put an asterisk at either side of it, which means if there's anything on either side of it, it pulls that too. Because I know that's the way I list Levi's jeans. They're going to have the words Levi's jeans just like that in them. And then I tell it, count how many times you see that. And now go over to the sold page and count how many times you see a sale. And now I can tell you my sell-through. And then I say, go over to the sold page, tell me how many times you see Levi's jeans, and sum up all the price of all those and divide by the number of times it's sold. I can tell you the average price. It's called average ifs. It's a formula, and it's really not that hard to use. That's the thing about Excel. It will tell you how to use the formula when you choose one. It'll tell you, there's a little formula builder. It'll tell you, all right, select the range, select the criteria. And it's a little wonky at first, but once you kind of learn it's the way it words it, it's not that hard to get the hang of, honestly.
And I'll tell you one more thing that my spreadsheet saved my butt on is inventory at the end of a year. I went through and I checked, what do I have listed versus what do I have in my inventory database and what do I have on the shelf? And invariably, I come up with a couple of either things I have listed that I don't have, or things that should be listed that aren't listed that are in my inventory. And it's all, based on this inventory sheet, spreadsheet, I can figure out exactly where my books are off. Right.
And that's exactly what I did, Dwayne, at end of year. And I had the same issue you did, my friend. I had some items and I went, and actually I took another step. I'm gonna do a video on how to do an end of year inventory, because I think a lot of people are confused about that. And honestly, I'm still learning that process, but I can share what I've learned. And eBay gives you the tools to go in and pull down all your listings. And you can pull that down in a CSV format. And you can see also like your seller SKU. And, so you can see, all right, do I really have item number 300? eBay says it's listed, but is it up there in my inventory where I think it is? You can go look,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
you can sort that out. And that's exactly what I did. And I had the same issue you did, Dwayne. I had some items and I'm like, oh my gosh, what did I do here? How did I? And it was probably just what they call fat fingers, where you entered the wrong thing, either in eBay or on your spreadsheet. But because you had it in both places and they didn't match up, you could figure out what you did and then go fix it. And I did. I was able to fix all. I probably had about 10 errors, and they were all just, I figured it out. I was like, oh, I see what I did here. And, but you would have never known. I would have sold items and never been able to find them if I wouldn't have done that inventory.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
well, and one of the things that I found was that a lot of times when I sell similar, when I'm re-upping my my older listings, if I forget to delete them, then sometimes I'll either redo it, which sometimes eBay catches it, sometimes it doesn't.
Right.
Or other times I'll delete those before I sell similar again. So I'll have actually inventory that I thought was listed, but somehow I deleted instead of relisting. So I mean, it's all basic finding. My spreadsheet is smarter than me. It finds all my human errors.
Right. Right.
Well, I have one more question, but before I ask that one, because it's kind of something that just came to my head, we had one from the Comfortable Life, and I don't know if you can actually answer this question. I know I can't. We want to know, what's the best mileage app?
I use MileIQ. It's like $5 or $6 a month. I think it's $6, $5.99, and it does it by GPS, and it allows you to auto enter trips. Like I take a trip to the post office quite frequently, and so I auto enter that now. So now when I go there, it knows that that's a business trip, and it does it by GPS. And you can select business or work, and you can pull down a report. There's a bunch of them, but I like MileIQ. MileIQ is the name. And no, I do not get a kickback. Wish I did.
Okay, my question before we get to Alvin's is, have you ever have you taught your girl yet how to run the spreadsheets?
No, and she actually wants to get a little more involved in that. Sort of. Maybe sort of is the right word, Karin. Yeah. And just because she can know it from the inside out. And she was asking me today, I just heard her laugh upstairs. She's watching, so she's on the delay. She's actually started listing some things. So she was asking me today, it's like, well, how do I keep track of these? And I was like, well, here's how I do it. And maybe you can use a modified version of it for what you're doing, because she's going to be selling different type items. They're not all jeans, so they don't all fit nicely on a shelf, so we're getting there.
And Alvin's question was, Prof, do you make a new spreadsheet each year, and how hard is it to print a large wide spreadsheet?
I do make one for a new year. I make a new tab, basically. And I just pull in the only tricky part about mine is because I can basically copy 2016s onto 2017, for instance, but I have to go in and change some dates that pull into the metrics section. Everything else stays the same though. Like the inventory tab stays the same, the sold tab stays the same, the sell-through stays the same, because the way I set all those up is when they pull data to other places to collect it and compute certain numbers and so on, I told it to pull really long ranges, like so long that I will never use it. Like I think my formulas all basically pull, like they look down through the column and they pull 1 million entries. So I'm never going to list a million. Well, who knows, but I'm never going to list a million things, I don't think, on eBay. And if I do, I'll buy a database probably at that point. But it's not that hard to do it from year to year, honestly. And you can even set up yours in the metrics section. You can just scroll it all the way across if you want it. You don't even have to create a whole new tab every year if you didn't want to. It's pretty simple, actually.
Let's see. We got Garage Flips has another question for you. Is it possible to automate data collection from eBay to populate your spreadsheet fields? And do you do this?
I don't know if you can do it to populate the fields or not, but I do know you can automate the data collection, and you kind of have to, because Lonnie, you probably ran into this. They don't go back but so far on certain data. eBay, like a lot of times it's like 90 days. So what I do is I will print things kind of at the end of each month, or just pull them down as a file. I don't even print them. I mean, there's really no reason to print them. Because somebody asked about printing the spreadsheet. I'm like, man, that'd be a long printout. I don't know if you really get that much out of it. It would be all weird, justified sometimes. But I think the best way, Lonnie, is you can go in there and tell it every month to create certain reports and email them to you. And they basically come down as CSV files. And then you could just pull the file in whenever you wanted, throw it in a blank sheet if you wanted. Like, for instance, you can pull in all your sales for a current, let's say you want to pull in all your sales for December. You can do that. It's really easy. Create reports, just like Amazon's reports, if you've ever used a reporting, and it just spins for a little bit, and then it's pretty much ready in no time. And then you can pull that in. It's going to show you all the item numbers of everything you've sold, the email addresses, the item, the price, the shipping, the PayPal info, your seller SKU and item number, which I use to do inventories with. And you can automate that process. But could you pull that into the spreadsheet? You'd have to set up a data source for it, which is doable. It is doable. And then pull it in. But the only tricky part about eBay is they give you so much extra info on that report that's a little bit annoying, to be honest. And you'd have to get your formatting right on it. But sure, you could do it. A spreadsheet can pull in automated data sources. But if someone's done or not, I'm not sure. So sorry if that wasn't.
Not me, but I think you'd have to build a macro to
right.
Take your CSV and pull it out.
A little more complicated for sure.
Absolutely.
And I know on eBay now, at least, there in the hub, there's a section where you can go back almost a year, but they still go back to not 90-day period of sales.
Right.
So you could technically go back a whole year if you do it. Want to sit there and go through month by month for that, or quarter by quarter in that time frame.
Right. You're exactly right.
And we have
And then,
question from Wicked Picker. He wants to know, how much different is your sheet versus the one you provided for us?
It's really not Wicked. It's actually the one I provided was actually a new version that's coming out. I'm plugging my spreadsheet. A new version that's coming out shortly. I actually got a developer to make some improvements to it, but it's got the same data pool and so on. Just mine has some things on it that are more specific to genes. So I didn't want to send that out to everybody because I felt like a lot of people would be like, well, what do I even need this part for? Like, and to create a sell through tab like we were looking at earlier for the gene brands for what you're selling or somebody else is selling, that was just a little more complicated of a task than I wanted to take on at that time. But I basically took what mine is and made it much more user friendly because I felt like I could not explain mine to someone. I mean, I know exactly how it works, but I couldn't explain it to you in a time frame that would, make sense. So I had to take it and just make it more palatable for somebody to be able to use. So it is virtually the same minus some formatting and, color and fonts and things like that. So basically.
Oh, unless there are any other questions, Dwayne, do you have any more questions for him?
no, I think we covered pretty much everything. We didn't get into too much of the logistic detail or anything, which is probably good for the most of the people in the chat. They don't. I mean, if they do know spreadsheets, they know where to find stuff.
Hey, I did want to say one thing, guys. Whatever you do, spreadsheet, a columnar pad, a notebook, track your business. I don't care how complicated it is or how simple it is. You've got to track what you're doing because if you don't, you're going to have no idea if you're profitable, no idea if you're on the right path or not, no idea if you're spinning your wheels with certain types of products and items. Just get started. Get started with something simple. If you just want to write down what you buy and what date and for how much, and then somewhere else write down what you sell and for how much and what date, start there.
Absolutely. Well, and I'm sure as most everybody understands that an inventory system is paramount. You have to be able to find things that you sell. Yep. So you've got to come up with a way, however it is, however it works in your head. If it works for you, that's all that matters. It doesn't matter if it works for Jason or me, right, as long as you can find what you're looking for when you need it. That's Absolutely. The important part.
And before I thank you, Jason, I want to let everybody know that next Sunday, we're going to have Silver Hair on. He may not show his face because of the area that he focuses on, but we will definitely agree to that and understand it because what's going to be coming out about silver and gold and whatnot for in eBay selling because he's not just a stacker, he's a reseller too. So
nice.
He should be on. He's having computer problems last I talked to him, but he said it should be fixed by next week. And Wednesday night we are going to have our drive-by reseller drive-by, which I hope, Jason, have you caught that yet?
The reseller drive-by?
Yeah.
I don't. Maybe Wednesday night. No, I don't think I've seen that one yet for some reason. I've seen it Sundays.
We started it this month, and it was what we did since we moved this to this show. Wednesday nights we have topics like we used to when we had the show on Sundays, but now somebody like you or Chad or whoever wants to come in hops in for a little bit and talks about the topic instead of sitting there having to type it in the chat.
Oh, I have seen you do that. Yes.
Yeah. So it has to drive by.
That's cool.
But I have an idea in my head of one topic that I definitely want to hit on. So keep an eye out for that. I'm not going to talk about it tonight. And we hope everybody had a good show. Thanks, Jason, for definitely being on.
Thanks for having me, man.
I don't know how much deeper we could have gotten without questions or anything like that. So Because we always get people asking about spreadsheets or taxes, and it's like, well, the spreadsheet can help you with your taxes too, but we're not going to answer the taxes question.
Yep. Right.
So,
Well, and I'm guessing that I'll speak for you, Jason. There, that if you have any spreadsheet questions, Jason would probably answer your question, or at least know where to get the answer for you.
Sure.
He'd be willing to answer any questions if you come across something where you're just pulling your hair out, which it happens.
Yeah, no, not at all. You're absolutely right. And I will, if I can't answer it, I will. If I can't, I'll tell you where I think you can find the answer.
Nope. Very good.
so I want to thank all 40 plus watchers that we had tonight. Especially if you pop back in and watch again. And we will see you Wednesday night. If not Wednesday night, we'll see you next week.
Nice.
Very good.
And to Henry, I guess we'll have a little bit of an after show. I didn't really think about it. So I'll send a link in the chat and just see who pops in. So
okay.
When you get here.
Thanks again, Jason.
Sounds good. Thanks, Dwayne. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks.